Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go over the Acquisition and Restoration Council coordination. DOT recently came up with guidance for coordination for projects which involve state-owned conservation lands, and that's what this is about. Guidance was provided in a new chapter of the PD&E Manual. This is Part 2, Chapter 23. And this guidance is lengthy and it could constitute a separate training all on its own. So today I'm just going to very briefly go over the information that is provided in this chapter, and you can check it out if you would like more information. So this new chapter provides guidance for projects that require the use of state-owned upland conservation lands that are managed for conservation, for outdoor resource-based recreation, or archaeological or historic preservation. And these are lands that are held by the Board of Trustees of the Internal Improvement Trust Fund, which we'll refer to as just the Board of Trustees. Now, the Acquisition and Restoration Council, or ARC, is supported by FDEP, and they administer the review and approval of management plans and land uses for all state-owned conservation lands. And this includes overseeing the process of review of the acquisition interests on those lands, such as easements, and also includes recommended approvals to the Board of Trustees. So this responsibility includes acting on FDOT's applications for easements on these lands. The chapter introduces the land acquisition funds, specific programs, and the statutory authority. And there are policies established by this Board of Trustees to provide criteria for which an easement can be granted for linear facilities, such as an FDOT right-of-way corridor, and also to address conditions in which they can impose minimization or mitigation of adverse impacts to these lands. So the chapter then goes on to explain how to identify the applicability of state-owned lands to your project. The Turnpike should identify potential use of state-owned conservation lands early in the development of a project, and this is regardless of whether the project's involved major state action or a SEER. And this is done using that area of interest tool in the EST, and also coordination with the land management agency for that property, or the FDEP Bureau of Public Land Administration. And this coordination is needed to confirm that the land in question has been acquired through their acquisition programs or is currently designated as a Board of Trustees owned conservation land. Now, the chapter explains the coordination that's needed for this process. There's coordination between FDOT and the Land Management Agency, and then they coordinate between the coordinations between DOT, the Land Management Agency, and the Bureau of Public Lands Administration. And then there's also coordination with the OEM director regarding anticipated impact to state-owned conservation lands, just to let OEM know that this is going on, and also if there's a need to prepare an easement application. And all this coordination also includes the discussion of mitigation. The chapter also lays out the preparation of this ARC agenda item package. And this includes an upland easement application, which at times is going to need a supplemental information, and also may need a state lands impact report. And the chapter details what these things are. It also discusses the process of scheduling the ARC meeting agenda item and the ARC's review of that package, as well as their determination and development of an MOA. It describes the signing of the MOA and the FDEP preparation of the easement document for FDOT approval. It also includes a section on other applicable laws and regulations that may apply when a project affects state-owned conservation lands. And then it covers how all of this is documented in the environmental document. So if the project is a non-major state action, then the checklist should identify that if there are state-owned conservation lands being acquired in the project area that are subject to review and approval by the ARC. Now, it should include a summary of the impacts and coordination, if appropriate, and include any correspondence in the project file. Now, any final decisions by the council or an MOA, if applicable, those items should be referenced and included in the project file. For a SEER, the discussion of impacts to state-owned conservation lands should be included here in the environmental analysis section of the report form. And it falls under cultural resources as its own subsection on recreational areas and protected land. And it should include a summary of the identification of the impact to those state-owned conservation lands and also the ARC review process. And correspondence during this process should be included in the SWEPT project file. And if there were final decisions by the ARC or an MOA was completed prior to finalization of the SEER, because sometimes this takes place after, but if it happened before finalization of the SEER, then this information should be attached to the SEER itself. And a figure was included at the end of the chapter that outlines this process. I know this is blurry and it's hard to see, but this is a great resource if you want to go to the chapter and get a really quick overview of this process. This is pretty complete and covers how everything is laid out in a sequential order.